ladies and gentlemen, like how Bollywood has critiques, right? ये movie अच्छा है, ये movie अच्छा नहीं है. He is a well-known critic of mutual funds. And he's considered as the custodian of our hard-earned money. He's well known for his simple thoughts, but he's very complex from behind. He's the founder and CEO of Value Research, India's leading independent provider of mutual fund information and research since 1990. Over the last 2 decades, he has gained a unique perspective by closely observing the birth and growth of modern Indian fund industry and by interacting and helping thousands of investors. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dhirendra Kumar. Welcome, sir.
I'm here with an thank you very much for being here and this coming on after your office hours for not so exciting agenda that we had set. And I'm here, you know, I was given a topic that transforming Indian from a country of savers to investors. The fact that, you know, there is so much black money, so many people don't save tax, don't pay tax, is that, you know, they're very focused on saving. The anecdotal experience that I came from my, you know, my own experience, ladies in the neighborhood, they all said that suddenly all the money that they have saved, and sometimes the scale of money that I discovered of late, I had never thought of those scale. So definitely they were very aggressive savers. They're very diligent savers. They are certainly not investors. And the time frame which they explained that, you know, how long they have been saving and with what purpose, that makes me think that, you know, nowhere in their mind they have the opportunity loss as part of their framework. Nobody has any context of, I was in one case, when I came across a reasonably grown-up mom of 2 young children who might be ready to, will be, you know, married off in another 2 or 3 years' time. The scale of money she had, I thought that, you know, the opportunity loss, even if the money was lying in the savings bank account, is exactly of the amount which she had then, given the periodicity of that savings. So, you know, of course, I'm here with a framework which I came to share with you. But before that, I have been provoked by Vivek to take on a couple of things. One is that I reasonably agree with him on many of the things, who advised, how it was planned, and all that is fine. But I have a slightly different experience. I have run Value Research as a business. I founded this business. There are a few things about demonetization which I would say could well be the turning point in the economic history of this country when we look back 5-10 years down the line. I set up Value Research in 1990. That was exactly the year which was the turning point. Before that, I had to wait for 7 years in Delhi to get a telephone connection. I had seen my father waiting for 10 years to buy a Bajaj auto scooter. He had to open a post office account, deposit that money, and wait for all those years. In the Asian Games, while I was a kid, we had, you know, people used to get Bajaj Chetak scooter for swapping their foreign currency. So we have been a very slowly evolving country economically. We have been looking, and there is every reason why we should have a very cynical view of this. We have every reason to be very cynical for the life we live in. We enjoy things. Things take too long for things to happen. And that exactly is the point, that this is a big change. This is something I also wish that, you know, I don't know. This is something which has not been tried. This is something of a humongous scale. There is a possibility that there will be great disappointment. With hindsight, we might come to a conclusion that it was not worth the effort. But I would still say that it's well tried. It's worth trying. Otherwise, we haven't gone anywhere. Hindsight is always perfect. But, you know, I can tell you that the key difference, there are two kind of black money, two sources broadly, which most of you know, that, one is the extortion bit, whether the government officer does that, or, the cops do that, or the criminal does that. That's the extortion, and I think, one has to figure out how to do that. And that, I think, is a very long agenda. That is a very large agenda. A government, which has gone about doing something, I really wonder that they are not aware of it. In fact, 3 days before the demonetization, there was something called Centenary Celebration of Vigilance Officer, where our Prime Minister explaining all the examples of corruption that he has faced in his life so far. So that actually makes me think that here is a guy who knows things. Here is a guy who knows what is going on. How can we think that, nothing is going to be followed up on this? Of course, I completely agree with Vivek. When I actually see people queuing up at between 6:30 to 7, I drop my kids to the school. And when I see poor people queuing up in front of the ATMs, there are about 15 banks in between the place, about a space of 1 kilometer in Delhi, where there are about 15 banks. And all these places, and winter is creeping, started in Delhi. I see people queuing up from 6:30 to 7 in the morning, and it's a long queue. I'm not saying that it's not going to be, it's not painful. It is definitely, they are definitely the unintended victims of something they have no role to play. I would wonder that, the person, in fact, the kind of example which Vivek was explaining, that is the starting point. I don't think, corruption started from people in general. People are generally not crooked. I think it started from the electrician he was referring to. He doesn't know how to deal with it. If he wants to be perfectly legitimate, at some point he will turn big and he will not be able to deal with it. And the moment he deals with it, he starts dealing with it, he will be given tricks to evade that. Because it's all a gang of people. They are gangsters. They are actually a beneficiary of the mess that we live in. And that goes on and on. I don't think it's an easy thing. I don't think we have, but I am not very cynical about these things anymore. The fact that this has happened is something which makes me think that we have every reason to be very optimistic. Long term, we have had a life of hopelessness for so many years. Too many things just not happening. I can tell you that, the smallest thing which makes me actually, I'm very envious of, I have run a business very legitimately because I was, in different kind of business. I was talking about this criminality of it. The extortion businesses which are corrupt. The other one are genuine business. The electrician he was referring to. There are two ways people steal money, avoid taxes. Concealing income, bloating expenses. These are two very simple things which people do. And eventually they create that cash economy. They create cash on which tax has not been paid. And then it had a full deployment potential. That, I think, is going to get badly bruised as a result of this. So we have, I think, we have reason to think that this is just one of the things. There are 50 other things to be done in quick succession to actually prevent this menace. Never in my life I have ever come across a situation which actually makes me very proud of a thing that being crooked was considered to be smart. For the first time in my 25 years of working career, I am feeling that I have been smart, not the other guy who was doing something crooked. That, I think, is, I might sound like a bhakt. I really don't care. Because I'm really looking forward to prosperity. I can't think of any reason why this thing has been done. There's a great possibility that it will be completely wrong, misplaced, and 5-6 months from down the line, we can say that, this was the most stupid thing that was done. But I still feel that I don't see any reason why it can be malintended. It has not been done with any intent to cause of course it has caused disruption. That is definitely could be unintended, could not have been estimated the way it is translating into. It is throwing up all kind of surprises. I also feel that it was grossly mismanaged for a long period of time. I think even now it is grossly mismanaged. Lack of information is definitely, I just can't really, understand why they can't be more transparent with the flows, or it is too embarrassing to be transparent at this stage. That part, I think, we should don't get into the semantics of it, too much of fine detail. It's a big thing. It might be a failure, but I don't think this is the end of it. We have reason to be very hopeful. The very fact, I can also give you an insider view. The day the demonetization happened, I was with Bala at Finance Ministry with 15 other people. We were shocked to actually that was a completely different interaction. For the first time in many, many years, I have come across a government official talking in great detail about, I don't know whether Bala will agree to this or not, but I haven't come across people in the government with so much of understanding of nuts and bolts, asking very specific thing in terms of how to improve things, and that definitely looked like a sincere effort to fix things or clean up things. When I compare it with the past, I have had such interaction in the past as well. 4 years back, the biggest thing that happened in the same room, same discussion, was Rajiv Gandhi equity scheme, which is so embarrassing that I had to come back from those meetings and I had to write a column persistently that somebody can actually spend so much time to create such a stupid thing. And it was such a gross waste of time, and now over time it has been proved, simplifying, doing things, getting a pulse of things, those definitely, today we are able to communicate very fine thing which makes making our life easier. I don't think it is going to be easy. A mess created over many, many years. And then I don't think it is only the government, it's only the politicians. I think politicians rule it. Despite their best of intent, I think there are a lot of vested interest. All the people who just can't really fathom that things can be done with simplicity or things can be done away with completely. I'm looking at that hope, but now I'll get back to the very specific agenda that I have, that, very fact that ladies had that much of saving and, people save taxes. These tax saving, being conscious of it and planning it, and definitely is a big thing. It is so deeply embedded in our Indian way of doing things. These real cases which we came across post demonetization only emphasizes that. There is an urgency to be an investor. One, I was referring to the opportunity losses, which it is not part of that framework. I think the fact that assuming that this demonetization fails, but the fact that people start putting their money, all that lady's money, 50,000 rupees a year, which is completely tax-free, given as gift, derived as gift, can be put into the bank, is safe, cannot be stolen, is a big enough thing. Then there is also, this is the first step towards investing. For last 10, 15, 20 years, I have functioned, I have run value, 25 years, I have run value research. Most of the strangers who come and say, they figure out that, I have something to do with investments or helping people invest or figure out right kind of investment, they say, what should I do? And there's many a times they're well-off people. Their starting point is that they have the money, but they can't write the check. At least the money has moved to the bank. You are in reasonable readiness. Most Indians are in reasonable readiness to invest right now. You'll figure out, and I would say that, the government's goal may not be that, the kind of people he's referring to, that putting 50,000 rupees in Jan Dhan and all that. Of course, there are too many newspapers and television. They will keep talking about who the government can get after. I think the government will be reasonably aware of, who to get after. They will definitely have their priorities and they know where to get after. They definitely, will be problems. There definitely will be unintended victims of this situation. My assumptions are based on, couple of things, why there is an urgency. One is that there is going to be a global phenomenon, the sustained decline in fixed income rates. This is happening, this has started, and this will continue. And many of you, some of you will definitely recall, 11%, 13% tax-free RBI bond. The time is gone. So you have to reconcile with lower rates. You have to reconcile with something else. And increasingly, government globally has become the largest borrower over time. We see great businesses don't borrow money. So if government becomes the largest borrower, it becomes the biggest beneficiary of lower rates. So here is a conflict of interest. And India has largely been, a lot of people don't invest, don't save in the financial framework. But the people who do, they are fixed income investors. Just to give you some sense of, what is the kind of investment. In fact, this is quite embarrassing. Though we claim that our mutual fund industry is about 16 lakh crore after witnessing some few quarters of rapid growth, of which only quarter of the money, or maybe about 30%, will be in long-term assets put by individuals, which means, Vivek is referring to 16 lakh crore worth of money in circulation. You can actually consider this country's wallet as that currency. The money that we keep in our wallet is that. Only a quarter of that money, which we keep in our wallet, is invested in long-term equity, long-term mutual funds. As compared to that, this is one way of looking at it. Amount of money that we keep in our wallet and what part of that money is really invested. It's tiny. Then comes looking at it from another angle. All of you would have been a great fan of Public Provident Fund. The outstanding balances of Public Provident Fund is about 11 lakh crore. 11 lakh crore. 11 lakh crore. Sorry. When I see this India is a fixed income country, and all the work of mutual fund companies over the last 25 years has translated into 4 lakh crore. So when I see 4 lakh and 11 lakh crore and scale of money which is in currency, which is in our wallet, I think that, we are far off from wherever we are. We have been living in a highly distorted country and economy. All this thing has spoilt our culture. We have been morally completely degraded. And we are completely divorced from the reality of economics. I just don't get the point that, we buy a house worth 15 crore and the rental yield is 0.005%. This is something, and this has been going on for all these years. This is going on for all these years because once the key difference is that I earn 100 rupees and I'm left with 70 rupees and I'm at absolute liberty to do whatever I do with my 70 rupees. What this event has done is, you and the other guy was making 100 rupees and he was at absolute liberty to steal that 100 rupee, but was constrained to do anything he wanted to do, but all he could do was buy that house, do all the nonsense, do that fat wedding. So when he was doing that and not being able to put that money productively and take a sensible economic decision based on logic, that I think is going to be one of the biggest difference. It is the way it is going to change our hearts and minds is the real issue. It is not about, of course there will be issues. Of course, it is not about money being printed and put to, I don't think, it is going to be as simple as this. We can well put up with, this 6 months of nonsense of people queuing up. And I really feel that, things would have been better planned. There is going to be a behavioral change. There's going to be, many a times, we are looking for some binary shift. Most things in world don't happen in that way. The guy who was doing 95% legitimate business, 5% nonsense, will say that it's not worth my while anymore. Let's just fix it. Somebody who was doing, 50, 60% legitimate, 40% because that was the demand of it, now he will move on to something like 80% legitimate, 20% nonsense, and say that, okay, this is the compulsion for now, we'll be on the lookout. I have come across people who are just not willing to comply. The butcher in the market where I live, he says that, that's it, we are not doing anything. He has started giving hundis to all his customers. He has been getting it from his wholesalers. He says that, wo abhi mujhe udhar de raha hai. So he's getting the fish and chicken from and this is going, and one has to really see in conjunction with what else is happening. It was just not, I'll just narrate you the example. I was very naive, getting started with my business. I ran a proprietary firm. Opening a bank account took no effort. All you needed was a rubber stamp in 1991. That was it. You needed a rubber stamp and you can open a bank account, and that is how I opened my first bank account of value research. Then somebody told me that if you actually incorporate a company, you sound a little more credible. So I incorporated a company, but I didn't have any resources. So all I did was wrote check and took out money as and when needed, because everything was, and also wrote some checks for buying equipment, computer, fax machines, and things like that. And on 31st March, I had to draw my accounts. I had no idea what to do about it. So in those days, banks were not automated. So I was able to cook my account, list my expenses and income from that bank statement, the counterfoil and the ledger. I was told that you have made reasonable money and you haven't paid any taxes, so better that you show some expenses so that you don't have to pay taxes, otherwise, it's all gone. So my first year was actually that, 1993. I was told that because you haven't accounted for it, so better that, and it was as simple as just putting up some expenses. Of course, the scale was few thousand rupees, not exceeding a lakh of rupees, so it was fine. But then that was a big lesson. Today, it is not possible to conduct that business like that. On the TDS, the compliance, the service tax, if those things are not made easy, people will not become compliant. So I'm still optimistic that a lot of things will happen. This is just a starting point. But if those things are not fixed, we are doomed. Because we are doomed otherwise too. Because if the way we are going, if it actually works like this, that's 60–65% of our business will never pay tax, and the life will go on the way it is. That is also not an acceptable thing. It was unlikely to get us dignity anyway. So that's all that I have to say. I'll be taking your specific question after this and try and answer this. I strongly disagree with Vivek on the broad principles. I completely agree with him on the kind of inconveniences people are facing. There is a possibility that the timeline might linger, but I don't think it's a small change. And I hope that it is one of the many big changes that we are going to see. Many of these extortionists in the government need to be fixed to begin with, and I hope that happens. I see some symptoms of that happening by being in Delhi, and as I can, sorry.
You said by being in Delhi.
By being in Delhi, I can actually see that a lot of people in my neighborhood who go to the Central Secretariat, the first thing was that they had to turn up on time. That in itself was, quite a remarkable thing. I see the kind of urgency, the timelines, the way we used to, our kind of timeline, work timelines. I see many of them actually having that.
Sir, my issue is not against Modi.
No, even if it is against Modi, that's fine,
Specific.
No, if Mr. Modi has done a stupid thing, you have every right to say that. But what I'm saying is that it is much more than the basic inconvenience and stupidity. I think, it is a big mental, it is a big change of heart and mind, or it's an opportunity, or it's a trigger. And I think one should look at it that way. It is impossible to think of any such thing in the past. And I don't see any malified intention here, which could have been behind this. That's one. And at the same time, I think that, there is a possibility that 6 months or 1 year down the line, we might think. The real problem is that all the metrics on which we are trying to measure it, it is not measurable. The tangibles and the intangibles, we will not be able to figure out. If tomorrow, if if we actually change the goalpost, there are actually multiple goalposts. If that lady has been forced to put her 25 lakh rupee in the bank account, which historically in the last 26 years she hasn't done, and then it would have been about 60 lakh even by earning those 4%, I think it has achieved, there are different other kind of payoffs, and most of it may not be planned for. And as I was telling you that this fixed income regime has to come to an end. We have been a fixed income country. Things have changed dramatically. Future is going to be very unusually different. If some of these things change, if this has the potential, one of the things, that changed in the early 90s was the incentive system actually changes behavior. We know in this country that in the early 90s or a phase before that, promoters used to steal money from their companies. This was a way of life, a difference between, and today we call it corporate governance. The biggest thing as a result of this action is, I think that many promoters will be forced to be honest. What do they do with the money? Because I have seen in the past that there were avenues to deploy large sum of money siphoned out of companies, which will not be deployed, which will not have that avenue, or it will leave a trail of a kind, because we find that the result of this demonetization is, I made that 70 rupee and somebody else had 100 rupee. I trebled my in 10 years time, or quadrupled my money in 10 years time, and the other fellow also quadrupled or more than quadrupled his 100 rupee, and now he realizes that he has left with something which is stinky, which is not worthwhile. So if you find that the net result is not that good enough, then you are forced to think. So I think incentive system has changed. In the mid-90s, that thing changed with Infosys. When Infosys was run as an honest company and it commanded a premium as compared to its peers, simply because no money was stolen out of the company. That itself was a big thing. And that thing can be one of the biggest change that it can have. So when I look at the kind of things which we are trying to measure, they are not measurable. It's a behavioral change, it's a significant change, and this is just the starting point. If it does not carry on, it will be very disappointing. The convenience of mutual fund, turning everything, in this country, agricultural income and equity investing is tax-free, held for over 1 year. That has also been liberalized at a balanced fund with 65%. I was shocked to know that after this demonetization, a lot of people were surprised to know. I wrote a column in Economic Times, and that was put on my website. In my conversation with a lot of people who have never invested beyond their bank deposits and other things, they had this understanding that investments held for over 1 year is tax-free. So there's a lot more to do. Bala has to carry on the investor education campaign for many, many years. The basic communication, the charm of equity, holding it for over 1 year, doing things legitimately, the difference from the past, how it could be a breakout from the past, and the rewards of being linked to real economy in a transparent, liquid fashion, the joys and rewards of that. I think there's a big task cut out for all of us, and the government has to really lead it. This is a starting point. I think we have too many people coming from an experience of, understandable that this cynicism that we see, because all these years we have only heard of things being talked about or being given away, nothing tangible being done. I think we have reason to be very hopeful. These are big moves. I'm confident that this will translate into something more than what we have seen so far. Thank you.